It's Sunday, February 14th, and this is the West Block: politics, perspectives, and players. It's been over 2 years since Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig were arbitrarily detained in China following the arrest of Huawei CFO Meng Wanzhou. They sit in Chinese prisons as she remains under house arrest in Vancouver, awaiting an extradition ruling. Immigration officials in Canada gave permission for her family to travel here. Meanwhile, the two Michaels only have limited consular access. This week, the Biden administration called upon China again to release the two men. Huawei currently wants to get its 5G network into Canada, but there are concerns about the company's ties to the Chinese government and allegations of complicity in human rights violations. Joining me now for some answers is Huawei Canada's Vice President of Government Affairs, Morgan Elliott. Morgan, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. We appreciate your time. A new administration in the United States, the Biden administration, there's been a lot of questions about the relationship with China and Huawei and which way that's likely to go. What kind of reception has your company received from the Biden administration so far?
Well, I think what we've seen so far is a measured approach by the current administration. Definitely a different approach than the different president. And we haven't had that much interaction with the U.S. government at this point. You know, we're always open to having conversations. Earlier this week, you know, our CEO did mention that he'd be happy to talk to President Biden or anyone in that administration to have a conversation. And I guess what that arises from is, you know, I think we're all frustrated with the lack of communications between the government between governments on a number of issues. You know, the company has never done anything wrong. We've been transparent in all our interactions. Meng Wanzhou has done nothing wrong, and we've gotten to a point where,
sorry, I'm just going to stop you there because I think that's interesting. Your company's position is, and as the Canadian version of Huawei, that Meng Wanzhou has done nothing wrong. So you don't think that the RCMP's arrest of her was legitimate?
The company has done nothing wrong. Meng Wanzhou has nothing wrong, nothing wrong. You know, we're seeing in this situation the previous president using companies and unfortunately people as political pawns. And so we've gotten into the situation today where Canada has been put in a hard place in terms of trying to deal with its friendships with Americans and its business interests in China. And Mr. Ren, like any father, wants his daughter home, just as the families of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor want their families home. You know, this is a political situation that requires a political discussion and political solutions. But what we're not seeing, and I think everyone's frustrated with, is someone, doesn't matter if it's the Canadians, the Chinese, or the Americans, taking the political courage to make the first move in terms of discussing this and having concrete action. We can all point fingers at each other in terms of how we got there. It doesn't solve the issue. And everyone talks about, you know, this being the number one issue that they wanted to solve, or an important issue they want to solve, but we're not seeing any actions. So we're just to a point where we're frustrated and want to see some action on this.
As a Canadian, though, you know, are you comfortable with calling the detention of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor political, and it's just pointing fingers? They were arbitrarily detained. So I guess I'll put it to you right now. Will you call for their release? Will Huawei Canada call for their release?
So that's a very good point and a very good question. First of all, you know, we're not a political entity. Unfortunately, Huawei has become a surrogate for all things Chinese. We're not the Chinese government. We're not an agent of the Chinese government. We're a company that's headquartered in China. So in terms of Michael Spavor and Michael Kovrig, you know, we've been clear and we haven't hidden this. Anytime we go in to talk to a member of parliament, senior bureaucrats, the Chinese government, we always say, you know, our top three priorities are bring the two Michaels home, send Meng Wanzhou back to China, and then we can start talking about business relations. And so we've advocated for a number of different issues, and we just wanted to extract ourselves from this political whirlpool that was instigated by a former administration in the U.S.
Okay, but that doesn't answer the question of whether Huawei Canada will condemn the detention of the two Michaels. If Huawei wants to do business, and you're speaking as a Canadian, why would the company be unwilling to condemn the treatment of those two Canadian citizens?
Well, as a company, we want everyone home. We want to send Meng Wanzhou back to
So you
China.
see the
We want
detention
Michael
of Meng
Kovrig back home.
Wanzhou and
We
the
want
two
Michael Spavor
Michaels.
back home too as well.
You see that as equal? You see those as morally equal? The detention of Meng Wanzhou under a legitimate arrest warrant out of the United States that had an extradition on it, and picking up random Canadian citizens and throwing them in jail for 2 years at a time?
Again, this was actions that were outside of the company. We're not a political entity. We're not a political government. We're a tech company that wants to do business.
Right, but
Canada.
if you want to do
so
business
we
in
want
Canada,
all the families home.
Then Canadians would like to know. If you see these two situations as equal, why would Canadians want your company to be doing business here?
Well, I think you have to look at our track record on why Canadians want to do our continue to do business here.
I think with all due respect, the
Huawei's
question is, if you're saying they're equal, Canadians, as you've noted, are very upset about this situation. These are two Canadian men who have been kept in jail under extraordinarily difficult circumstances, while Meng Wanzhou is in a multi-million-dollar home in Vancouver. And you're essentially equating them today here, sir, and saying, well, it's not for us to say. This is a member of your company. You yourself are linking them. You're telling us that when you meet with the government, you're raising this. If you won't condemn what is happening, why would Canadians trust your company?
Well, listen, we don't think anyone should be used as a political pawn when it comes to a trade issue. And so, no, it wasn't our decision to detain the two Michaels. We'd like to see them home. We've advocated with the Chinese government directly that, the conditions, we've asked for conditions to be approved. We've asked for other measures to be taken. And like I said before, we all want to see this resolution to the situation. We can point fingers and we can look and see what happened, but that doesn't solve the issue. We need political solutions and the political courage for the three governments to sit down, or a combination thereof,
the
to say,
political
hey,
courage for the
how do we
Canadian
get here?
government to
How can we
bend
solve
to aggressive and coercive diplomacy by the Chinese state. I mean, you say that your company is not part of the Chinese state, but according to nonpartisan intelligence assessments, say Huawei staff and equipment in any country can be compelled to share information with Chinese state intelligence under China's national security laws. So are you promising Canadians today that your company will defy Chinese law if the Chinese government comes to you and asks for that, which is required under Chinese law?
Yeah, well, listen, we've been unequivocal that we would refuse to do that. So just to unpack that a little bit. So Huawei is in 170 countries. So we have to obey the laws of 170 different countries. And as it comes to, the allegations that Huawei must spy, quote unquote, for the Chinese government, states across the globe have different laws. There's the Patriot Act in the U.S., the Cloud Act in the U.S. There's lots of fervor in Australia in terms of their quote unquote backdoor legislation that allows access into telecommunications networks. So what I will say is, even if you don't believe that and it's equating to, well, you must spy for the Chinese government, then the same must be true for our competitors who have, tons of research labs and thousands of R&D employees in the country. So, there's a researcher at the Munk School in Toronto who said, Canada doesn't have a Huawei problem; it has a 5G problem. So I think we have to unpack the issue, step away from the political rhetoric, and if there's anything that Huawei's been guilty of, is not telling our story strong enough and not refuting some of these spurious and false, and quite frankly slanderous allegations. We've been in Canada for 12 years. We've worked with the security agencies. 70% of Canadian traffic over 3G and 4G networks already uses Huawei gear. We've not had one cybersecurity incident.
Well, not that we're aware of, unless it leaked out of the Chinese government. That's not something that I think China will share with us.
Canadian security establishment has our source code. We provide them our equipment. We provide the lab space, and they test to make sure there's not vulnerabilities in the networks. The telecommunications networks spend millions of dollars protecting their networks. And so, people are using these allegations. If there was evidence that China was spying or using Huawei to spy on different companies, listen, from a pure capitalistic point of view, we wouldn't be in 170 countries, we'd be in one. And if there is evidence, the easiest way, you don't need to go lobby different governments to say Huawei's an untrusted vendor. Just show the information publicly. Put the information in the public domain. We've seen this story before with other people using false facts to further their agenda. Put the facts on the table. If there's hard evidence, Huawei won't be in 170 countries anymore. It'll be in one.
Well, you're not in the Five Eyes countries, which is the ones that Canada's are the most concerned about and have to have security relations with. Canada's intelligence chief at CSIS came out this week and said China is undermining Canadian security and trying to steal technology from Canada and silence critics here. On the silencing of critics and minorities, your company in China filed for an application for a patent that had a Uyghur alert technology in it that could identify them as a separate ethnic group. This is a group that has been targeted by the Chinese state and put into forced labor camps. I have to ask you, why should Canadians be comfortable with a company that is identifying software to use visual recognition of people to identify their ethnic group?
Sure. Just back to your first comment about CSIS. Yeah, and we've also seen other security agencies in Canada say that they believe the ability to measure and protect Canadians using Huawei gear is possible. In terms of the Uyghurs,
which security agency said that on the record? I haven't seen that.
CCSC and CSC have said that. I believe it was on one of your competitors' shows that they said that rather recently, that they believe
that CSE came out and said they think Huawei is safe on the show. I haven't seen the CSE chief give any interviews.
CCSC, I believe it is. I'm happy to report to you.
Sure.
But just in terms back to the Uyghurs, because that is equally a critical issue. First of all, that was a mistake. It's wrong. It's completely unacceptable and not compatible with the views of Huawei. And we don't condone, and we don't want to see our equipment used to discriminate or oppress any group. Point blank, stop. It shouldn't have been done. It was a total mistake, because you can imagine with a company of 200,000 people, sometimes stuff gets posted, and it was a mistake. And we unequivocally condone the use of our technology to discriminate or oppress any group.
So you accidentally had this end up in a patent application? I mean, this is a pretty major technology. It's not like someone accidentally put the wrong line in. If you've developed this technology, that's an investment of resources, an investment of people, an investment of time. That's intention. That's not somebody accidentally made a typo in the patent application.
It was a mistake. My belief and my understanding is it's not a patent application. It was a paper posted on our website. And again, we unequivocally condone the use of our technology to discriminate or oppress.
So you condone it or you condemn it?
Both.
You condone it?
We do not condone the use of our technology to discriminate or oppress.
And yet it was in a patent. Okay. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate your time and sharing your perspective with us.
Thank you.